the Suicide Fox, and this is my feedback video for the Gears of War 4 beta. In this video, I will give my thoughts on the beta and what I think needs to change for the final game. Since this video is pretty extensive, it is split into sections with timestamps in the description. I will provide examples where I can for the more complicated parts, and you can find all links in the description. If you would like to ask a question or discuss the video, feel free to post in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Gears of War content. To start the video, I will talk about the two major issues I had with the Gears of War 4 beta. These issues are ones I think the Coalition really needs to address if they would like to improve this game. The first major issue I have with the game is the shooting delays out of Roadie Run and during cover use. Both of these delays caused a lot of frustration for me and made me feel less in control of my character. First, we have the Roadie Run delays. Roadie Run delay is the delay that prevents you from firing your weapon immediately after a Roadie Run. I believe that this delay needs to be cut down because it reduces the responsiveness of the weapons. I understand that the delay is in place to limit a lot of the run and gun nonsense with the Gnasher, but many times I died because my weapon failed to fire coming out of a Roadie Run. There is no reason for the Roadie Run delay to be that long, and in Gears Ultimate Edition or Gears 3, the weapons are simply more responsive, and I'm sure I would be rewarded with a kill in either game. Second, we have cover use delays. Cover use delays occur when you pull off of cover and fire your weapon during that pull off animation, also known as a back A. In Gears Ultimate Edition, there is no delay as your character would fire the weapon immediately, but in Gears 4 there is a short delay before shooting while your character moves the weapon into the ready position. Now, the trick here is that the delay is dependent on which side you shoot from. A right-handed back A actually has very minimal delay. Not instant like Ultimate Edition, but still acceptable. However, doing a left-handed back A causes the character to switch hands before firing the weapon, which delays the shot by literally more than a second. My solution to this problem would be to simply lock the animation to left hand during the frames when the weapon is being fired, and basically just mirror the other side for that instant. This would make back A work identically for both sides and fix a lot of the cover delays we have now. If shooting delays are also an issue for you, or you simply want to learn more about them, you can come join the discussion thread I created on the forums through the link in the description. The next major issue I'd like to talk about is the new active reload system. Now, in past games, the active reload system could be abused by pre-activating your weapon before a fight. The new system was meant to prevent this sort of abuse, but as I see it, things have only gotten worse. In past games when playing online with all strangers, I might see a few pre-activating before each fight. But now, this new system literally has everyone in the game doing it before every fight. The fact that you can reload a weapon that doesn't need reloading just makes it very easy to spam. I know the cooldown was added to deter this, but honestly it doesn't do much. The cooldown would have to be at least 3 times longer to actually stop people from spamming it. I've also found that the new system completely negates a failed active, as you simply can do it again and again until you get an active. You can also constantly active reload power weapons, which is just silly as it lets someone keep an active indefinitely. Honestly, Ultimate Edition did actives near perfectly. Most do not know that the active system was slightly changed in Ultimate Edition compared to all previous games, as Ultimate Edition prevented you from maintaining a full clip of active by reloading a single bullet over and over again. Considering damage boosts are much less in Gears 4 than all previous games, I don't see why this whole new system was necessary to begin with. I felt that the cooldown mechanic was a good idea to combat spamming, but it would work a lot better if applied directly to the active system as seen in Ultimate Edition. That would force people to consider the right time to use an active and discourage abuse while allowing for clutch moments. Now let's talk about the weapons available in the beta. Overall, the weapons are well balanced in Gears 4. They are not overpowered like Gears 3, and they are much more consistent than any previous game. The Lancer in this game feels great. It's powerful, but not as powerful as it was in Gears 3. It feels a lot like the Lancer in Ultimate Edition, just with a longer lasting clip and better accuracy while moving, which is, in my opinion, the perfect version of this gun. It was said that the weapon has stopping power, but I haven't really noticed that, except with actives. Chainsaw also seems to work just fine. It's pretty much identical to how it worked in Gears 3, but the vacuum effect isn't as great as before, So overall, the Lancer is solid and should stay as it is. The Gnasher feels excellent in this game. It works like we have come to expect from the series and is more consistent than any previous game. You guys at the Coalition definitely managed to nail the Gnasher almost perfectly the first try. Keyword here is almost. While the functionality and everything of the Gnasher feels great, the only thing I don't like is the range. It feels like the weapon has too much range and can two-shot down from much farther than it should be able to. I would say cut the Gnasher's range by about 15 to 20%. It would make close range fights last a bit longer, which just means the more skilled player will come out on top more often. Beyond this issue, Gnasher is damn perfect in this game. On a side note, I'd like to add that if the Gnasher is nerfed in this way, it may be necessary to also nerf the Lancer, in which case I would simply say remove the stopping power completely. I really like the Hammerburst in this game and have said for a while now that it should revert to the classic burst fire like the original game, but keep the Gears 3 weapon model. It seems like the Coalition has done just that, and it's awesome to have this weapon the way it is. The only thing with the Hammerburst is that it feels weak. The way I see it, the Hammerburst should do more damage in one burst than Lancer does in the same time frame, but still have the same time to kill as the Lancer. Basically, it would be a weapon that does larger chunks of damage, but is on par with the Lancer overall. The Snub feels really good to use, and I like its design in Gears 4, however, as with the Hammerburst, it simply feels too weak. It was said that the weapon was designed more for close range combat than previous games, so I think the best option here is to just increase the damage per bullet. I don't think it should be able to compete against the Gnasher, but it should be a bit more of a formidable weapon in close range. Right now it barely feels like it does anything to the enemy at all. Also, it should have no range modifiers if shooting at a downed enemy, which it seems to have in the current build. The Boltok has changed a bit from previous games. Before you could hold the trigger and it would fire at a set rate, but in Gears 4 you must instead pull the trigger for each shot. I must say I like this change, because it makes the Boltok feel like it came straight out of an old Western movie. I also like that the base fire rate is a little faster, and the active reload is really fast, almost as fast as you can pull the trigger. Damage is identical to past games, so no complaints there. The only problem I have with the Boltok in Gears 4 is that insane recoil. I would only ask that the recoil be turned down for the final game. Smokes work great in this game. They fill an area with smoke fast, and the smoke is very hard to see through. However, the smoke stun has returned, which has upset a few people. Now, I don't necessarily have a problem with smoke stuns, but I do feel like the game would be better off without them. The stun can be a good tool for creating an opening push, but there are better ways to get this effect. Change the smoke stun to something more like a flashbang stun from other games, where your screen is flashed out and your ears are ringing, and this would allow for some of those same openings to push, but not totally remove control of your character. A good player could continue fighting on pure instinct, and it would limit the smoke spam seen in high-level competitive Gears. Frags work just fine in Gears 4, although some people have pointed out how it can cause damage through some pieces of cover, which is something that should be fixed. Otherwise, frags can stay as they are. Now, I'd like to take a moment to talk about grenade planting on walls. In Gears 4, you can see enemy grenades through walls on the Tac-com. While I personally rather have grenade plants removed entirely, this is a very good alternative. Better players tend to spam the Tac-com a lot, so at higher levels of play, grenade planting becomes merely a waste of a grenade. But it can be used to punish people that don't use Tac-com or run around blindly. The Longshot rifle, more commonly known just as the sniper, feels good in Gears 4. I would like for it to have a bit more snap to the aim, like Ultimate Edition sniper, but if it remains unchanged, that would be acceptable. I do have an issue that isn't necessarily exclusive to the sniper, more that you just notice it a lot more with sniper, but one thing I would really like changed is the headshot animation. In Gears 4, the enemy does this weird backflop animation that just looks really bad. I'm not sure if that was a placeholder for the headshot kill or what, but I prefer that the enemy just ragdoll like previous games. It just looks better. Boomshot is great in Gears 4. It only has 2 shots, which is great because a 3-shot boom was a real problem in Gears 3. Blast radius seems just fine, though if it was made a bit tighter like Ultimate Edition, I would like that too. Really not much else to say about this one, it just works really well. The Dropshot is a fantastic weapon. It is well designed and everything about it is fun and skillful. It took a little practice, but once I got the hang of it, I could land shots pretty accurately. However, I do think the red laser should be more visible when the projectile is in flight. It would make aiming more clear for the shooter and give the enemy more visual about where it is heading. Also, while the current headshot animation is pretty nice, how is it that no one at the Coalition has played a little game called Turok 2 and seen this bad boy called the Cerebral Bore? That should be the headshot animation for Dropshot. It would actually drill into your skull and then explode. It would make this weapon just that much more satisfying to use. The torque bow is a weapon I know very well. I have been a fan of this weapon since the first game. It was my favorite weapon to use and the one I am naturally best with. After a Gears 3 promo in which Carmine goes to buy life insurance and mentions how his uncle died in a game of torque bow tag, I went to the forums and made a post asking to turn this mode into an actual mode in Gears 3. It got a lot of support, and torque bow tag along with other special events like one shot, one kill were put into the game. I can go on further, but the point here is that I love using this weapon and I am generally very good with it. However, I really hate whatever it is that was done to the torque bow in Gears 4. I find myself missing a lot more than I feel I should with this weapon. If I had to guess, I'd say it was the change from a physical projectile to a hit scan, because the unique firing technique of the torque bow is missing in Gears 4. When you swipe your screen and fire, due to the charge mechanic and the bullet being a physical projectile, there is a certain timing to landing your shots that is markedly different from weapons like the sniper. In Gears 4, the crosshair is very faint and does not seem to give an accurate representation of your shot. The arrow itself is almost invisible and gives you no indication exactly where it hit. Sometimes I would get a stick when I definitely wasn't aiming at someone, and other times I would miss when I'm 100% sure I was aiming right at them. The sound effect is muted very heavily, and I have been able to walk up right behind people and stick them where they never even knew I was there. Though this may stem from a more general audio issue I will talk about later in the video. Bottom line, the torque bow in Gears 4 just feels off compared to all previous versions. It doesn't feel like the torque bow I know and love from the past games. Please, Coalition, please fix the torque bow for the final game. Let's move on to the maps and game types. Dam was a solid map and probably my favorite map from the beta. It reminds me a lot of Checkout from Gears 3 because it is very flat and generally features very low cover. The only issue I really found was that it felt a lot easier to spawn trap on this map than others. I think that adding a bit more cover near the spawns would help to fix this. Foundation is a really good map and seems to be the favorite amongst high-level players. It reminds me a bit of Blood Drive, just turned inside out. Weapons are pretty balanced out and the layout is done very well, though it feels like the torque bow side of Frags is a bit lacking in cover. Otherwise, this one can stay the way it is. Harbor plays very well and has the distinction of being the only map in the beta that doesn't remind me of a previous map. The theme sort of reminds me of Rig from Judgment, but the layout itself feels unique among the series. Nothing about the design stands out as being really bad, so I say just keep it as it is. Team Deathmatch feels pretty much the same in this game as it did in the past games. I did notice that it seems like spawns would rarely swap, and when they did, you would basically have to be standing on the spawn points with your team. I think the spawn swap threshold needs to be moved out from the spawn a bit more. I also noticed that spawn swap message was missing from the beta version of Team Deathmatch, so hopefully it will be included in the final game. The new mode Dodgeball is actually a lot of fun to play. It's a bit like Guardian, but with a lot more back and forth. I did encounter a few bugs with the respawn mechanic. First, you can get a respawn if you trade with someone or kill yourself in the process of killing someone else. Second, there were instances where the enemy respawned because of a planted frag placed by someone that was already dead. And third, being executed does not stop your respawn timer, and as the bots are prone to doing executions, this led to a lot of unfair respawns for the enemy. These all seem like bugs, so they should be fixed for the final game. Now, something I think would be a good addition to Dodgeball would be to make it so that performing an execution other than a meat shield instantly respawns your teammate. This would encourage people to go for executions more often and give more opportunity for clutch moments. The next few topics cover changes I'd like to see in the general gameplay of Gears 4. The cover mechanics in Gears 4 are fantastic. It feels a lot like Gears 3, but with a tad slower pace. I was doing my best to break the bounce limit despite not being a fast wall bouncer, and I could not really find it. I felt like there was a solid rhythm to bouncing effectively, and I think the cover system should stay the way it is. Although, if I could do anything else different, I might make it so that a wall run is instantaneous like it is in Ultimate Edition. I use this technique quite a bit in Gears 1 and Ultimate Edition with great success, but for Gears 3 and now 4, there is a short pause before you start to run. I think doing this would simply increase the number of skill for movement options available to the player, which is always a good thing. I will admit that I was a little worried about the close cover combat mechanics being introduced in Gears 4. Generally, melee-based combat is just lame and cheap in Gears, but this system is designed really well. I like that the vault kick, previously known as the mantle kick, is done by pressing up and B. In fact, I have been saying that it should be done this way since giving my feedback on the Gears 3 beta. The grab can also be pretty good at catching someone, and doing the knife execution is pretty fun. But the best part is that both moves can be countered. It makes doing either a risk. Generally, I found the vault kick to be a lot more effective as it is more difficult to counter, but it is generally telegraphed pretty hard so you can kinda just move out of the way. Overall, I like these new moves. They are a good addition to the game. While Flinch in Gears 4 is not as bad as Flinch in Gears 2 or 3, I would still like to see it gone from the game entirely. Ultimate Edition's equivalent of camera shake was removed after its beta, so I do not see why this mechanic should remain in future games as well. The way I see it, anything that moves the player's aim other than the player is a bad mechanic. Flinch only serves to detract from the skill in the game, so it should be removed. Spawns in Gears 4 are about the same as they are in all other games, which is not actually a good thing. First is the issue of spawn invincibility. While I understand it is necessary to prevent spawn camping, I really have thought for a while now that there needs to be something to let people know you are invincible. In Dodgeball, I've had the enemies spawn very close to me, and would usually get killed because I did not know they were invincible. Additionally, it's not uncommon to run into a freshly spawned enemy in other modes like King of the Hill. A good solution would be to make the characters flash like weapons flash to indicate the player is invincible. Second, if Dodgeball is any indication to where the secondary spawn points are, they will become a problem in other modes that use them, such as King of the Hill. Sometimes the enemy would spawn right in front of me, or I would sometimes spawn as the last man standing right in front of a group of enemies. Spawn points, or at least how the game determines proper spawn point, should be fixed for the final game so that players spawn always far away from the enemy. Executions themselves are fine, really the same we have seen in the past games by now, but it seems like there is something wrong with the camera angle in Gears 4. Nearly every time I did an execution, the camera would not change. The game should always move to the cinematic view for executions, so I hope this is something that is fixed in the final game. The last gameplay feature I want to talk about is the bullet trails. Now in Gears 3, the bullet trails were very visible and easy to see. This was important because it gave the player a better idea of where their shots were landing, which then helps in adjusting aim or deciding whether or not to push. Gears 4 bullet trails for every weapon except the Lancer seem almost non-existent. I had a hard time telling whether my shots hit or not because there were no bullet trails on my screen. This sort of feature is especially important with the Gnasher because the bullet trails would only make it feel that much more consistent. Bullet trails should be made more visible like they were in Gears 3. Next, I will talk about the game's controls and user interface. The Tac-com has always been a great feature in the Gears series, but I feel it is generally underutilized. I do like the look of the new Tac-com in Gears 4, and the way spotted enemies are highlighted is a nice touch. But this version, just as with the Gears 3 version, is missing a few important bits of information. In Gears 1 and 2, Tac-com told you the weapons your teammates had. I really think this needs to come back. It doesn't need to be cumbersome, maybe just highlight the weapon in your teammate's hand so you can tell if they have a Gnasher or a Boomshot. Now, I did notice that the new Tac-com will gray out weapons that have been picked up, but why not take it a step further and add the weapon respawn timer to the Tac-com? That's a very useful piece of information, one that pro teams will generally have their coach track, so putting it in the game just seems like a no-brainer to me. A simple and effective way to present this information would be to use the player respawn clock animation seen in Team Deathmatch as the weapon's respawn timer on the Tac-com. While I do like that I can mute people quickly and easily, it seems to be too quick as I found myself accidentally muting people while spamming the A button coming out of spawn. I was also able somehow to mute myself, though it didn't seem to do anything. This needs to be fixed for the final game. I recommend just changing the mute button entirely, or maybe changing it to press and hold A to mute. I noticed that there is an auto center camera feature in Gears 4, and I would prefer to play without this as it can affect your aim, and I'm sure there are many others who would agree. There should be an on-off option for the auto center camera in the control menu. I believe this has been requested for a few games now, but there should be a control slider option for aim acceleration. Halo 5 added this to their control options, and it just serves to give the player a better experience. Gears 4 aim feels too slick for me, and it would be great if I could adjust this to my own preference. For each game now, the whole revive execute weapon pickup situation has been a problem. The original problem was that sometimes you did the wrong thing, and the current problem is that everything just seems very cumbersome and overly complex. So I'd like to present my idea to streamline these controls. First, the X button is now exclusively for weapon pickups or interactions such as button presses. After playing Ultimate Edition, holding the X button to pick up a weapon just feels like crap. Honestly, no other way to put it. I don't want to see weapon slide return, but I do think the tap X for pickup method feels a lot better. Next, Y button will be the revive execute button. To revive, tap Y, and to execute, hold Y. This gives revive priority over execution and makes it more likely that you end up doing what you want to do. This last change is a bit more drastic, but necessary for these controls to work. Change the Snub execution to meat shield and the Gnasher execution to curb stomp. Now, I'm sure you're already saying no to that, but I have good reasons, so hear me out. First, as someone that played a lot of Capture the Leader in Gears 3, I can tell you that the Snub is the only pistol worth using with the meat shield. Boltok is more of a ranged weapon, like a pocket sniper, so taking the meat shield isn't really necessary. Second, often the best way to finish it down is to meat shield, as it can be done instantly no matter what weapon you have and you get a free piece of cover in the process. It's a tad spammy in its current form. But if you were forced to take out the Snub to meat shield, then it becomes more of a calculated risk. As for the Gnasher getting the curb stomp, well, the way I see it, golf club execution sucks anyway, and since most people are carrying the Gnasher, you can always do a curb stomp. As a throwback to Gears 2, maybe keep the golf club swing as the Gnasher's melee execution. Oh, and if you want to do the beatdown, you can still do an execution with the grenades. These changes would really streamline and simplify the controls and just make everything more consistent and less cumbersome. Finally, I want to talk about the game's online features. Matchmaking in Gears 4 feels very similar to Ultimate Edition. Based on what I've seen from the matchmaking lobby interface, it seems like the whole quick and ranked match are a thing of the past, which tells me that the playlist will be kept to a minimum. If that is true, I'm all for this, as I think the whole quick ranked social competitive thing just spread the community too thin. I like the new ranking system, however I did not rank up or down once during the entire beta. I feel like this was definitely a bug, as I should have gone up considering I won 4 out of every 5 games I played. Also, I would like initial rankings to be based on 10 games as opposed to 5, and ranks should reset every few months. Basically, the system needs to be the same as the one we currently see in Halo 5 Guardians. I believe that bots should only be used to balance the teams and not used to fill a game. If the game is all players, 4 versus 4, it should stay that way. But if it were 5 versus 4, then one bot should fill in on the other team. Bots, despite being far better than any previous game, are still just a liability in modes like Team Deathmatch. It would be better to just remove them if they aren't really needed. On a side note, if these bots are any indication at the AI we will see in Gears 4 story mode, I am now pretty excited to see how challenging the story ends up being. Level progression is the same as before, which is fine. Being someone that would play with or without a leveling system, I do like the addition of bounties. They make the level progression a bit more fun. Not much else to say here. I probably have more to say after I see the bounties in full form in the final game. Region selection should not be automatic or set to a default. When I first signed into the Gears 4 beta, my region was set to Europe. I asked a few friends and they all confirmed that they were also set to a different region from the start. I think that when you first sign in to play the game online, a dialog box should open asking you to select your region to ensure that people are being placed on the correct servers. I experienced a few technical issues during my time with the Gears 4 beta, but I will not be going over specific bugs as I already have posted them under the official bug report thread on the forums. This is already a well-known issue in the Gears 4 beta, but the surround sound was really messed up. Something up close would sound far away, and vice versa. Grenades would sometimes fail to make noise, and torque bow was almost silent to all but the shooter. Directionality seemed to be correct. It was mostly the distance and fidelity of the sound that was the issue. This was the same audio issue we experienced in the Ultimate Edition beta, so I really hope this gets fixed in the final version of Gears 4. I noticed that the frame rate in the Gears 4 beta was not consistent and that my inputs were being totally lost during frame drops. I know this is a beta, I just want to stress how important a steady frame rate is for the final game. To conclude this video, I just want to say that I really enjoyed Gears 4 beta overall, and I am definitely going to be buying the Ultimate Edition version of the game, if not the Collector's Edition. The game is really solid and is shaping up to be the best one yet. I know a lot of this video is about my issues with the game, but I only want the game to be the best that it can be. I am really looking forward to playing the game again in October, and I want to thank the Coalition for all their hard work on the game and for their support of the community over the past few years. Thank you for watching the video, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Gears of War content. I'll see you guys in the next one.